Hi everyone, welcome to our Wolfram Language Design Review. This is part of our incremental language development series, but it is a little different than usual because it's a survey of incremental language development, looking at, as we close to the beginning of a year, we're looking at some slightly bigger questions about incremental language development.
Yep.
Okay, let's dive in. Okay.
So these are a few things that we've talked about throughout the past year that have either been spun off to another group, or we've started individual series of meetings and then they've kind of been picked up by another development team that we're either working in concert with or at least checking in on periodically. So
Okay,
grass with
so
oh, yep,
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
mean, this one is really quite important, and I'm
Hmm.
concerned. I don't want to see this like float off. This is a now 14.3 type story.
Yep.
So can
So
we, yeah,
we have Nick and Ian here who started the process of kind of pushing this into an active development project and working on prototypes. And they've also been working with Charles on it, who's I think particularly interested in getting involved. I don't know, Ian, if
right,
you want
okay,
to take it from there, or
Right. So Nick and I have been working on string diagrams as a form of port graph, and now we've got a weekly meeting with Charles and Julio for graphs with ports more generally, and that is moving along. We've been meeting every
good.
week, and yeah.
Okay, I'd like to, can you loop me into one of those at some point in the next few weeks?
Yep, we're planning on next week, tentatively.
Great. Now, what about things like GraphFold, graph evaluation, and so on?
yep.
Where
So
is
some
that?
of
That's kind of been tied in with graphs with ports because so many cases of graph evaluation that you care about, also you want the graph to have ports.
Okay. Does foliation also come with this, or is that
Mm-hmm.
not?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. These
All
are important
directed
things.
acyclic evaluate, all that stuff.
Okay. Great. Look forward to it. Okay. So, and I assume this is properly on the global project list and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
Good.
Both graphs with
Okay.
ports, graph evaluation. Yep.
Okay. All right. Next up. So that seems fine.
yep.
Um,
So this is something we talked about a little bit last year, where we wanted to have more control globally over the different generative models that are used in various LLM and other generative functions. I've worked with Julio a couple of times since ILD, and he has this in his queue of things to do, of kind of having a general configuration framework for uh, text synthesize
I don't
the
understand
LLM
this. I mean, we've
models.
got LLM configuration
Yep.
so how does this relate to that?
Yeah, this was so we had started with that as a baseline of LLM configuration, and there's a second part, I think, that is a general framework for all the generative functionality
I
that
don't
is
understand this
modeled
yet.
at.
I mean,
Yeah.
somebody has to explain this to me. I just don't know what you're. Do you have an example of something that would
I
need to be set?
I don't have one on hand, but I can
Okay.
follow
So
up
I
on
don't
that.
understand
Yeah.
this. And this doesn't seem like a major thing to me, but
Hmm.
I don't understand this. So if that can be brought up either in the machine learning meeting or in an ILD meeting as a segment, that would be good.
Okay. Yeah, I'll follow up on that, and we'll bring it up in one of the two meetings. Yep. And so
Okay. So this
there,
is part of, but there's more to multi-computation than this. There's
right.
also multi and so on. That's a complicated big project.
Right. And we have Nick here also. I don't know, Nick, if you had a status update on multi specifically.
Right. Well, there's no much update on the multi itself. It's purely just an object in our lives in the multi-computation Padlet, which is in the repository.
Mhm.
And that's about it. There's also like maybe some evaluation semantics that can be also thought of as multi-computation, just being expression and superposition, things like that.
I think we need to have a meeting about this. I think we need to do a standalone review of this stuff. It's very interesting stuff, and I think we just need to, have. So if we can get such a meeting scheduled, that'd be good.
Okay. Yeah.
Um. Okay. This is very important.
Hmm.
Non-commutative stuff. As I've said to Roger, I just want to emphasize it here. Please meet with me early in the cycle Because one of the things we need to figure out is things like, are we going to try and use star star as our non-commutative multiply operator?
Okay, yeah, I will.
But does anybody have a comment on that yet?
In my opinion, that should be left to the users. We should have our own version of that with semantic meaning as we want. If
Own
we
version
add
of
meaning
what? Of star star, or own version of
star star, yes. If we add any meaning to star star, we might break many things that are using that operator.
We'll talk about it.
That's a big unknown. There could be quite a lot using it out there.
It's a similar situation to when we added tensor wedge, which is the semantic version of wedge. So wedge doesn't have any meaning, but people use it to
okay,
represent
so let me
something.
make a suggestion. Let me make a suggestion which will help this. So with star star, we've now got a new degree of freedom, which is the autocomplete mechanism.
Mhm.
And I think that will help us here. Because what I found with the new positional percent, it works great. I type in percent and I either decide I'm going to hit enter and get that completion or not. And I can choose one way or the other. Same thing as what I'm hoping to do with formal symbols and so on. Makes sense. So I think we might be able to do that with that operator, some kind of autocomplete thing where you can pick, do you want the old style star star or a new one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I mean, the sooner we can look at this, the better, please.
I
Let's
believe
see.
Adam added it to the prototype build this week. So
Which added what?
the non-commutative multiply. Sorry, the non his non-commutative algebra branch. Although I don't remember exactly what's in it at the present time. So,
Does
but
anybody
if
know
you
what the
do,
operator is
if you
called?
just start typing in non-commutative, then you should get some symbols.
No, but that's the old non-commutative multiply.
Okay.
That's that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't know yet. Okay, I just want to say the sooner we can get a first design review of that, the happier I will be.
Okay, we'll pass that note along.
Okay, geodesic curve. What is this? Why is this in Charles's world?
I believe this came out of the mesh region. Sorry, the mesh region project to one degree or another. I didn't get a status update when I asked about it.
But so
this
is
the
this?
last slide.
I mean, that's nice, but this is not the only kind of geodesic curve we care about. I mean, this is in flat space.
Right.
Like this is more like I mean, I'm not even sure I would call it geodesic. It's kind of a shortest path from point 1 to point 2 while, avoiding the obstacles type thing. Skeptical I am about calling it geodesic curve, but I understand it's a cool piece of functionality. I mean, it's hopefully okay. Well, that's fine. I'm not a fan of calling it geodesic curve at all.
Okay.
Jose, do you want to comment on that?
I agree with what you said. I've seen some parallel work on curvature, so I'm hoping that these two things are related. And then when there is curvature, the concept will be the correct one.
Yeah, right. But I think we need a simpler concept because I think people who want to know how do you get from here to there how do you navigate a robot from here to there and not thinking about geodesics. They're thinking about, just not the right name for them. So please pass that on. But otherwise, this looks fine. I didn't know this was an ILD project ever.
It came up as a question in ILD, and I followed up on it and saw that Charles was doing some work related to it in regions. So,
okay, fine.
So the rest of these are things that are more closely tied into ILD.
All right, let's take a look at some of these. Okay, multisets. So what do you mean? Because we don't have a set construct. Danny, what are you thinking of here? I mean, this is operations, treating things as multisets.
No, creating them from a list given certain parameters like size.
So this is parallel to subsets. So traditionally there are, in Europe at least, we call it variations, combinations with and without repetition. So there are 4 cases and we have 3. Subsets, permutations, and tuples.
By the way, we have an echo of some kind. Some people. This is a minor point, but
Might be me.
okay. But so this is a similar operation to this, except that subsets has all kinds of options. Like I think it has a, if I say that, right, it's only up to
Subsets would be able to return things with multiplicity. So it would be able to say
Multisets.
multisets, exactly. Multisets would be able to return something like if it has length 3, it would return AAB.
Yes, you
I
can
see,
do
where
that
it's
with
in
subsets and repeated elements, but
So
I see.
subsets is able to return things, but essentially subset is not looking at the content. It's just returning the
Right.
same structure.
So the multiset idea is can copy a variable multiple times. You can copy an element multiple times. Is that correct?
correct.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Okay.
it's with repetition. Same thing as tuples versus permutations.
So is it just a function called multisets?
Yes, with a freedom of selecting the sizes in output. Again, like
We
tuples
could
and
add
permutations.
Echo is really weird.
we could
Sorry.
have supporting functions like multisets, union, intersection, etc.
Okay, but I mean,
If so
you're not,
desired.
this is not a new structure. This is always lists. It's just, it is finding the multisets of a set. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a WFR for that already?
I think there is one
That's a good question.
in a multiplicity notation. Didn't you say, Danny, that there was something from Bob Nakbar?
It's either Bob or George Beck. Bob has definitely contributed multi-set functionality. I just don't know offhand if there's a generator function that he uses
Okay,
to
fine.
create
This is
all the
clearly a useful
multisets.
thing, right? This is clearly useful. Somehow this reminds me of the thing that we just changed. We seem to have a whole bunch of multi-set functionality here. Okay, well, so there's a bunch of things to look at here.
Is it like basically ordered tuples? So that you can tuples, but they no
Is it?
the
I see.
similarly how
Yeah, right. Where you have to use them in order, is that right? Well, but they're sorted. It's not that they're in the original order. They're sorted into a canonical order. Okay, this area is clearly useful, but right. There's probably nothing to talk about right here about this, and I don't. This doesn't look like a huge amount of work, right?
No, and we know of packages and implementations that are already
Right.
quite good.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Right.
Fine. Sounds good to me. Okay. Next permutation, etc. I mean, this is somewhat related to the iterator stuff in the compiler, yes?
Yep. Yeah, I sent Tom a note about it and I haven't heard back, but we've talked about it in passing in ILD, and I do think we want to
Okay, I think we're
piggyback on
not
what
ready on the
compiler's
design.
doing.
Yeah, I mean, we need to understand the design there because I don't think we're ready with this. It's not it's not an obvious design.
Okay. Yep. That was my understanding as well. So
Okay, select permutations, etc. Now that is also related to this iterator stuff, and I think should be looked at in that context, rather than, I mean, these functions. Go ahead.
Unlike Nick, I'm not willing to wait forever to get a reply to such a note. And also, I think from implementation point of view, the selectors might do best to get interleaved with the permutations, subsets, tuples generating code, where instead of creating a massive list, we still generate all of them because we have to, but go one at a time and only store the ones we want to select.
Well,
we already have efficient code for the generation.
Can somebody make sure who's project managing it? Yeah, Carla, is that right?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you make sure that Danny gets an answer from the compiler people about what they're doing, just so he doesn't replicate the
Look,
work?
if it's going to take me forever, it's going to take Carla 2 or 3 forevers. I mean, let's be sensible.
Well, I can help you.
Okay. Do you want me to send?
I'm
Copy
sorry,
me on
was
the
my
email.
cynicism bleeding through?
Yes, but that's okay. I mean, we
Oh,
want the results.
okay.
So why don't you
Okay.
copy me on the piece of email, okay? And then I can help you to get an answer. But we're not going to write extra code just because somebody doesn't answer their email. So
Well, it's not really writing a lot of extra code. We have pretty good code in place for generating
fine.
these
I mean,
things.
that's fine. That's fine. I just think it's worth at least pinging to find out what else is being done. Okay, but I get the point.
Okay. Okay.
All right. I see a question, live stream from Ethan. What about higher order LLM stuff like multi-agent orchestration? Yes, but that's a different group of people in a different meeting. We're working on it.
Yep, these next two projects are interrelated, obviously. We've done some work back and forth between the ERP team and ILD in terms of handling some things like modernizing message handling in utility functions, handling quiet check, things like the interface or generalizing confirm and close to system. And we've talked with Todd and Roman a few times. It's just
we really
been
need to see that error handling project. I mean, it's had a bit of a errored history. We kind of need to, that's a project management story. Let's try and figure out where it's at, who might be able to contribute to it, and on a 3-month time scale, let's try and get something to happen.
Okay.
Is that reasonable?
Yeah, Carla and I will push Todd a little bit and see exactly where we are and what's holding.
I mean, Todd is primarily working on the new package format. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Yeah, I mean, when I checked in with Todd about it, Roman wrote back and said Todd is busy with other things right now. It's not entirely on ice. It's just on hold for the current release.
I mean, okay. I don't think those particular people are working on
I want to say I don't know why this is on this list, because this is something that was spun off from LCC, and
yeah, I mean, this is one of those cases where there's overlap.
to sort of ping on it, but basically,
okay, fine.
There's nobody working really on this, and right, people are working on this in their spare time. Nobody's actually primarily focused on this.
Fair enough. All right, Echo. Okay, so you're saying move it to the LCC list, and that's the status.
Yes.
Okay. Echo. All right.
So we've had some discussions both here and in LCC about echo limit, max echoes, and things like echo size limit. I think,
which is also all related to logging.
Right.
I think.
Yeah. There's a close relationship there, obviously.
Fine. I kind of wonder, with some of these echo limit, max echo, blah, blah, blah things, I wonder if there's a UX piece of this that could be pulled in. Just like we have the output size limiter. I wonder whether there are many. Okay, here's a question. The mechanism that we have right now for 3 messages and then you're done, right? I invented that mechanism in 1987. We haven't changed it since. I wonder whether there's a thing that we should be doing with echoes. Just like if you do too big a, the too big output thing, right?
Right.
I wonder if you generate lots of echoes, whether you should get an interface like this rather than the thing scrolling off the screen. Because this could scroll off the screen, but we made the decision to not have that happen.
Have like a container for the echoes to land in.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all things we've discussed before, and there are,
Well, I hadn't focused on that point. I mean, I maybe you were ahead of me on that. I mean, I hadn't had the idea.
No, we've had this conversation in this meeting, Stephen.
Okay. Well, I don't remember it. I mean, I remember us talking about a bunch of mechanism. Go ahead.
It has to have a lot of front end support, I would think. No?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Right. I mean, they're both conceptual and implementational type issues, right?
I think we should have a discussion that includes some people from the front end team talking about echo limiting, rather than it being purely, like who has ever changed? I don't even know if there's a way to do it. Can you change the number of messages you get before it stops?
You can change it to infinity by turning off general stop,
Yeah,
but
it's
I don't
just
believe
or
there's a
all of
way to
them.
customize a finite number.
Right.
I think I made a function repository entry to do that once.
But
Let
nobody
me see if I
cares.
can find. No.
Right. I mean, this is my point, that nobody really cares. I mean, that you want something sensible to happen. And with the echoes, having the damn things just scroll off the screen is not particularly sensible.
Speak for yourself.
Well, okay.
Uh,
Okay. It
you know.
depends. Sometimes it's useful, although sometimes I would claim when it's scrolling off the screen, you'd be better off having some kind of logging concept. Anyway, we should discuss this, okay? Logging, but the new thing for me, maybe not new for you, is the idea that we should get some user interface support for this. Okay, let us continue. But I agree that's a worthwhile active project. It shouldn't be too hard, hopefully not too hard to implement once we figure it out. Okay.
It won't be
skeptical
simple, and there are conceptual issues. I mean,
I know there are conceptual issues.
So,
okay, dictionary unification. This is the word list versus dictionary lookup versus spelling dictionary versus whatever.
Yep. Yeah. There's currently 5 different word lists in being used in the language. It's complicated to unify them, but I don't really think there's a long-term plan for anything text related that doesn't rely on getting a baseline dictionary that we can build the things we need. The spelling dictionary isn't going to use the same thing as word list, but we have tons of inconsistency.
What should happen here is, and this Alan obviously needs to be part of this discussion, just like in word list, we have, if I do a generic word list for English, I'll get 50,000 words, give or take.
Yeah, we get
40,000 words. If we say known words, right, we have another word list type of known words, which is like 100,000 words, I think.
Yeah.
85,000 words. Right? And I mean, I think that there just need to be other named things like spelling words, like, because we know there are different issues that come up. I mean, like, it isn't useful to have 10,000 as a common word. I wonder what Xerion means. And now, then there's the question, if I say word definition of Xerion, do we actually know what it is? Okay. Well, who knew? It's a nice sounding word. Oh, look at that. We even know about it.
Xerion.
What's that?
Yeah, it looks like it's a dialect of
what? Uric, whatever, Ugaric, Finnic, Finnish, who knows? Okay. Sandra is commenting, it'd be nice if only the last, say, 10 would show, kind of like print temporary, in the echo stream. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a million different options for this. We keep on talking about them. It's kind of complicated, but I think it's worth pushing harder on that. Okay, but this is primarily Alan's project. It will need a design review. I would recommend, particularly if they're stuck, that we have an earlier design review and try and map out, because if they're trying to unify everything, it's not going to unify. See what I'm saying?
Right. I think the
we
idea
can have
is
unified treatment. Go ahead.
I think the idea is that we want a common base to build the different systems we need off of, rather than the system thus far has been more ad hoc, where dictionary lookup was built first and it uses a giant text file with a bunch of words listed in it, which is different than the dictionary that we pull from for dictionary word queue, because that plugs into the spelling library.
I understand. Yeah. Right. Those have to be unified, but I'm not claiming, and it would be wrong to say that the thing that you get from word list open close is the same thing you are testing spellings against.
Yeah, I 100% agree that having a different word lists available makes sense. I think the back end, where we are curating and managing a dictionary that gets used throughout the language for different things, needs to be more unified than it currently is.
Okay, I agree. But that's an Alan and
Yes.
the LexDev story.
Yep.
Okay. And maybe the LLMs can help. Who knows? Okay. Let's keep going on these. Okay, this may be a stupid idea. This was my idea. I mean, the issue that comes up, we got a bunch of functions like cellular automaton that would like to have, okay, I've got these values. I don't know, this may just be a stupid idea. I mean, let's not waste our time in this meeting on this.
Okay.
We can bring this back at some point. It's a random idea. Maybe it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, we'll put a pin in it.
De-experimentalization.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
my
talked
gosh.
about this a bit in the last ILD meeting. I've started the process of kind of contacting different development groups about the functions that have been experimental for a long time to try and build up this inventory of what we don't like, what we do like, and kind of throw them into categories of this obviously should be promoted, this obviously shouldn't, and which ones we actually need to talk about.
Fine. Okay, good. Okay, this is generic dates for buildings.
Yep,
Things
this
like that. Is that
is
correct?
also date object of underscore entity. You know, basically, what is the canonical date or canonical date interval for entities?
I
We've had a few
understand.
meetings.
I'm waiting for a final. I mean, we went through, made a bunch of judgment calls.
Mhm.
I think they were trying to work through whether those were sufficient, and then we'll get back. It seems like it's in process, but it's another group, right? This is not an ILD story.
Yeah, there's an ILD element. We typically loop it back in because of the kernel side of hooking it up into the system for things understanding entities as data input. But yeah, the majority of the work is on
Okay.
Alan's side, so we're waiting on Alan to be ready.
Okay, so the diagonal slash and grid headers, you mean on the corner cell?
Yeah, on the corner, basically dividing the corner cell.
Okay, so let me
daily.
point out, as we've already discussed recently, there's multiple things between, table form, grid, tabular, table view, etc.
Mhm.
We kind of need an effort to unify all these things,
Mhm.
and data set, of course. And this will come up for all of them. So, I mean, I think we just need that summit meeting talking about grid-like formatting, and this is an element for that.
Okay.
Okay. Short and elided string. Yes, we know we need that.
Mhm.
We're waiting for you to come up with a prototype.
Yep. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
status of a number of the things in this section are basically.
Okay. Merge when? What the heck is that?
That one, it'll take a little more explanation. Maybe we'll circle back if we have a little more time here. I probably should have moved that farther down.
Okay. What is LERP?
It's a linear interpolation formula. I think Nick M might actually have been the first one who brought it up. I have shopped it around to a handful of groups, and no one has jumped at it immediately. I'm waiting for
Well,
Shadi.
there are these functions that have arisen as activation functions in, swishes and whatever they are, all our various activation functions, which we support as part of what is the function? Is it element? What is the function where you can put in activation functions?
Element-wise layer?
Neural net?
No. Element-wise layer. That's the one. Okay, here we go. There they are. Things like this, right?
Yep.
Like ReLU. I mean, I could just say plot this thing as a function of x from -5 to 5. I believe. I certainly hope. What the heck is it? There we go. Okay, so there's ReLU, and there's all kinds of. I think I could equally well here have Swish. What's it called? Is it Swish or Celu is another one, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, these are just functions that have become popular, at least this week, so to speak, in neural nets. I don't know, is lerp another one like this, or is lerp something more general?
It's useful for animation, right? I used it for the tour video of images, just to interpolate the motion.
How is it defined?
It's a form of interpolation, right? So I don't think it's a single named thing like this.
Okay. What is it? What arguments does it take?
But usually like hold on. It's very simple to implement. Usually it takes like a initial time, final time.
Do we have a WFR for it?
No.
We have one for spherical. So if you look for slurp, there's a spherical version.
There's the easing functions also. I think easing function is the
Yes.
most related to that.
Okay. Sounds like we need it designed for easing functions, lerps, etc. They seem useful to me. I have to say, it's something that comes up for me with some regularity. It's kind of like figuring out how do you get something where you're going from here to here. I mean, we've got these functions like rescale and so on that work quite nicely, although I often have to look up, or these days I ask the notebook assistant to come up with things for me. But in the past, I was reading documentation for them.
Yeah. Let me also point out that, typing an element-wise layer of ReLU is about 20 characters too long, right? Because you could have just typed in ramp of X.
Yes, I'm well aware in that particular case, but Salu is a different story.
Okay.
And I mean, these, it's a little bit hacky to be typing element-wise layer for these things. If we're going to have kind of these string-named weird functions, we might want to rethink how that works. But right now, these functions are really creatures of the neural net world. Nobody's using Celu. I mean, it's like I'm always amused. Okay, when some people, when they see this function, they say, "Oh, no, I'm not going to say it correctly. It's an American option put or something, right?" And there are people I know where in describing mathematical functions, they will describe them as puts and calls, whereas anybody else would describe them as ramps and things like that. So there are functions like this that arguably we should be looking more seriously at giving them specific names. I mean, this particular one obviously has the name ramp, right? I don't know if anybody has comments on this. I'm not sure. This is really a question, I would say, for Roger and others to ask the question, are there simple functions like this that are useful? Go ahead. What?
Oh, you resized it. I was like, why is it plotting it differently? But it's because you resized the first one.
Yeah. Don't you like the new colors so much better? I do.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not offended by them, but I don't see the amazing improvement that you apparently see.
Okay, fine. Okay, in any case, I would like to fork off something, just asking the question, are there functions that are now becoming popular? Like, for example, back in the day, what was that? Late 1970s, right? The function earth, well, you would not find it in any, certainly not by that name, in any of the books and mathematical tables. Okay, it might be called probability function or whatever else. But earth emerged as a named function that people used probably in the late 1970s. So my question is, are there named functions that are emerging that we should be paying attention to, of which ReLU is one possibility, although as Itai points out, it's really just ramp. So could that be looked at and talk to Roger about it, please?
Yeah, I will spin off something with Roger and see.
Right. We could ask an LLM that question. It's good at answering questions like that. Okay. Let me see here. Geo-intermediate.
Yeah, this is finding a point between 2 points on the geoid. Yep. We looked at it.
How is that not related to geotrajectory?
Geotrajectory is something that depends on time. This is more a geometric operation, the sort of thing that we were just discussing with lerp or blend.
Okay,
Oh.
but fine. But I mean, if I do many geo-intermediates, I'll get a geo-trajectory, won't I?
Yes, parameterized by arc length.
Yeah.
Yes. So the idea of trajectory is that you can keep changing the velocity. It can be a plane, and we want to compute acceleration.
So it has right. So it has the motion on the trajectory, whereas this is the pure geometrical. I mean, even for a line, what is our line intermediate? How do you do that? If you've got a line from, from 2224 to, 79, how do I go partway across that? How do I go partway on that line?
I don't know if
you can do the region centroid for the central feature, or for the
no, but
the
that's
center
not good
point.
enough. I mean,
But
what
yeah.
we want is,
Right.
this operation, I would have found that useful many times to be able to find what is the 1/5 of the way along that line type thing.
Right.
Seems like that's the operation we need. I mean,
Yes.
okay, we need a family of operations like that.
It's almost like mid-date that we just introduced as well.
Yes, it is. It's
Which
like
also has a parameter of.
Right. It's almost like mid of anything. We could say mid, blah, blah, blah. And then now in the
We have
date case,
midpoint that could be generalized.
Oh, we do.
And midpoint already operates on a line.
Well, then we may already have it.
Currently, it's one argument. Just gives the exact midpoint.
I see. So that's the obvious thing to generalize. Because it's a mid, just like we decided mid-date can have a, so okay, so that's a good thing. So it could be like that.
Yeah.
But then it could be the mid family, where what is the geo line? What's the way you get? It's just, is it geo? It's not geo line. It's just line, right?
Geopath.
Oh yeah, geopath. So
Geopath
then,
would be general.
okay, so then we could have midpoint of geopath. And that would give you the intermediate point.
Right, that would be a geoposition. Yep.
Seems like the right way to do it. And the default would be just literally the midpoint. If you don't give a second argument, it's 0.5. I like that, by the way. I think it's good.
So we talked about these fairly recently, but I wanted to at least note that working on a couple of discard related functions, since discard is new in 14.2. So sister functions to their.
Sander is asking, what is geo-intermediate of entity France, entity Netherlands? Is the answer Belgium, Luxembourg? I don't know my geography well enough.
I guess we would have to start by converting them into points first.
Yes. Yes. I mean, well, we don't have, unlike with dates where we have granularity, we don't really have geogranularity.
No, but the entities, the geo entities usually respond to geoposition and they give some sort of central point.
Sandra is asking, talking about discard, what about the drop family? So we have take while, but we we have take while, but we don't have drop while, I believe.
True.
Not in WFR.
It probably
I don't
is in
know offhand.
WFR. I admit that I would have used drop while. We should, oh, look.
Is that just reverse of take while of reverse?
I'm not sure. This is Sander's function. Thank you, Sander. Drop trailing while. Drop from the end. I don't know. I think you could reverse, but I think we should consider drop while. I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing that I certainly would have used. Really? What different UUID methods? Who cares?
So there are different UUID methods. We talked about this a little while ago, and it's just in the queue. I think we use UUID version 7 by default, but there's some that are timestamp encoded. There's
Oh,
some
yeah,
that
right,
have
I
different
remember
randomization. So this is in the queue. It just hasn't happened yet. Phonetic data is also something we talked about early last year. The idea of having like an IPA encoded string and being able to do something like feed it into speak. We have a tooling kit that exists behind the scenes where we can do things like handle IPA encoding in the speech synthesis system, but we are still kind of working on a language level design for how you represent that. Since it's not the highest priority and teams involved have been busy with other things, it hasn't progressed a lot.
Okay. What the heck is that? Do you mean Turing machine?
Yeah,
Or-
that was a typo on my part. Sorry. Not Turing machine.
We're getting into lathes.
No, it's 2D. There was a notion of a Turing machine in 2D cellular automata. There are some things here that I really would like to see done. So I'm not sure, how we should get them done. Maybe a little bit of next time. Maybe. I mean, some of this stuff is very straightforward, but certainly for just to clarify.
I don't know about all of these, but one thing you asked for rule plot to be generalized, and I think Dugan from Wolfram Institute is taking a look at that.
Okay. This one here is kind of important. This one is really annoying for people who want to use Turing machine, all the computer science classes that use old Allen's, Turing's, kind of convention for halting in Turing machines. We don't have halting in our current setup, and it will be easy to add. Well, we should go through these separately and figure out what resources we can use for them. Okay. Anything else to cover here?
Nope. I think the two sections we didn't open up under minor stuff are basically, just status updates on, we've gone through most of general utilities. There's a couple of topics that are tied in with larger discussions, like how to handle expert bags,
Okay, so look, expert bags, the data structure project is the main place to go.
Yep. Yeah, I think most of what's in general utilities just isn't relevant there, but I haven't had time to go all the way through and make
Call
sure it's all
graph, I
covered.
think Ian has done. I mean, I think we built a bunch of that stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
We might have expert bags also in the WFR. I think Rick Hennigan did something with
There's
that.
some stuff there as well.
But
yeah,
expert bags should be handled with the data structure mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah, the purpose of inventorying
It's
it is
very
to make
possible
sure...
that they already are, by the way.
Yes.
I don't know, but I have this vague memory that maybe they're in there now.
Okay, so the next point here, the WFR stuff, I am totally delinquent on my efforts to categorize WFR stuff. It's not that I've not forgotten about it.
You're giving yourself too much credit there.
What do you mean?
I mean, if there's a beyond totally delinquent, you are it.
Okay, fine. I have not forgotten. I keep on getting, I'm going to have this time at this point, and then I realize I need network access and I don't have it, etc. I will get to this. I'm sorry I haven't gotten to it yet, and I'll have a much better understanding of what's there when I've done that. I have to say these seem pretty like filter options. We've got lots of functionality for that now. We should figure out, is there something we're missing, and kind of close that off.
Yeah, all 5 of these points are basically, there are existing projects that do these. I just have not done the exhaustive inventory of everything that's in general utilities that covers those to make sure it's all already covered by other projects, at which point we just don't need the stuff that's in general utilities. Anything that relies on it should be ported over to use the new framework.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, guys. See you later. Thanks to folks on the live stream. Lots of interesting comments here.
Thanks all.
See you later.